Alright, let's talk about the world of Tarkir. Today I'm going to talk about the history of Tarkir, and then in future days I will be covering each of the clans. So, thousands of years ago, the spirit dragon Ugin, who is an elder dragon from Dominaria and the twin of the evil dragon Nicol, came to Tarkir. His essence blended with the plane, and for all intents and purposes, it became his world. The plane was sort of balanced on a razor's edge between these dragon broods and clans of the humanoids of the plane. This balance was disrupted when Nicol arrived and finished off his brother Ugin. The dragon storms lost power until they disappeared entirely, and the dragons were hunted to extinction by the Khans. Without the dragons as sort of common enemies, the Khans waged war against each other. And you can see some evidence of these dragons, like Kolagan. The dragon throne of Tarkir is Kolagan's skull. It was into this environment that Sarkhan Vol was born, a member of the Mardu, who are loosely based on sort of the steppes people of Asia. Their real-world equivalent would be Mongols. Sarkhan was always sort of inspired by the dragons. He was very obsessed with them. And after speaking with some Temur shamans and getting some ancient dragon spirits speaking to him, he transformed into a fiery dragon for the first time and wiped out his own forces, leading the leader of the Mardu at the time, Zergo, to hate him a lot. Sarkhan would go on to explore the multiverse and eventually pledge his allegiance to Nicol, not realizing Bolas's history on his own plane, or that Bolas was evil and corrupt. On Zendikar, he was spent weeks waiting at the Eye of Ugin for Jace and Chandra to arrive as part of Nicol Bolas's plans. And during that time, he started to feel like he was going mad, because like a voice kept speaking to him in his head, the voice of Ugin. Eventually, with a piece of a Zendikar Hedron in hand, he returned to Tarkir, where he made friends with Narset, and the two journeyed to the grave of the spirit dragon, as the voice in his head was sort of prompting him. But Zergo learned he had returned and was pursuing them the whole way. They reached the tomb of the spirit dragon, Narset stays back and is ultimately killed by Zergo, while Sarkhan ventures down and is transported backwards in time 1,200 years. There he meets Yasova Dragonclaw, the Temur Khan of the time, who had been working for Nicol Bolas, thinking she was helping her people by getting rid of the dragons. Transported back to just before the fateful duel between Bolas and Ugin, Sarkhan is able to save Ugin's life with the Hedron from Zendikar. It creates a protective cocoon around the spirit dragon where he recovers for a millennia. Sarkhan is whipped forward in time, but in the past, instead of dying out, the dragon storms actually started raging out of control, giving the dragons an upper hand. This continued unabated for 2 years until an event called Khanfall. And this is an event where the last of the Khans fell, and the dragon lords, the legendary dragons over each brood, take over. However, each clan preserves a bit of themselves. The Mardu don't actually have to give up anything. They just lose a lot of their culture by having to constantly keep up with Kolagan and her brood. The Temur have to give up most of their magic, specifically around their shaman practices with the Whisperers, but Yasova keeps them going in secret. They're also forced to hunt basically nonstop to feed the dragons. Shu Yun seals away a secret vault of Jeskai lore and then surrenders to Ojutai, allowing the Dragon Lord to kill him. And basically any warrior who has the training to kill a dragon has to die. But otherwise, the Jeskai are more or less able to continue as they were, just under Dragon Lord Ojutai. Tassigur gets killed and made into Silumgar's necklace, and the Silumgar become little more than slaves to the dragons. And finally, Jamoka makes the Abzan give up their necromancy, their spirit worship, their ancestor worship, and breaks up their blood families into families based around like the cities they're born in. Sarkhan returns to this future and revels in it, and this is largely where we leave things with the 5 Dragon Lords in control of what used to be the clans. Ugin is reawakened and goes to deal with things on Zendikar and deal with his brother. With Sarkhan's help, he ends up creating a trap for Bolas. Jace Beleren makes everyone think Bolas is killed during War of the Spark, but Ugin has captured him and brought him to the meditation realm, where he is keeping him as a prisoner. However, this removed Ugin once again from the events of Tarkir. During the Phyrexian invasion, there's some unprecedented level of desperation and partnerships. However, it also reveals to the people under the Dragon Lords that the Dragon Lords are vulnerable. Lots of dragons die, and there has never been a better chance to get out from under their thumb. A rebel leader from each of the 5 clans then, at the end of this rebellion, summon 5 spirit dragons through the Storm Nexus ritual. The spirit dragons manage to defeat the Dragon Lords, and the 5 Dragon Lords sort of disappear into the storm. However, as a consequence of this ritual, dragon storms on Tarkir once again start to go out of control, this time spitting out entirely new kinds of dragons, whereas before they fell into just one of 5 kinds of broods. So the situation is now the 5 clans and their clan dragons, which are made up of dragons from the Dragon Lord reign that decide to stay with the clan, and new dragons who bear similar characteristics to the original 5 broods that tend to get lumped in, versus these wild, never-before-seen kinds of dragons. And, of course, the other clans. And this is the situation we find ourselves in Tarkir Dragonstorm. And over the next week, I'll go into a little more detail on each of these clans. But just as a reminder, Khans of Tarkir, all the stuff with this symbol, the original clans that we remember for Khans of Tarkir, that didn't happen. Instead, these new clans, despite having similarities and similar people, they're sort of a fusion on the old ways of the clans from a millennia ago that were kept in secret lore, traditions that have popped up with the Dragon Lords. These are not cultures that appeared overnight, they were pre-existing. And some new stuff they added. So, for instance, the Sultai are very different, and I'll get into why, but a big reason is they're just rejecting Silumgar's nonsense. The new Sultai make a lot of sense when you remember they were under Silumgar's sort of greedy claws for a millennia. And so a lot of that clan world building is just a rejection of the greed and avarice of the Silumgar era.